For over 30 years, Square has been making Final Fantasy games, and at long last, we have Final Fantasy XVI. For now, a PlayStation 5 exclusive, with a main story that takes over 30 hours, if you don't skip cutscenes and ignore side quests. At least, that's how long it took me. So now, I would like to share with you what you can expect should you choose to play the game for yourself. The world is slowly being devoured by a blight, and many nations are at war. Each nation hosts a dominant, someone who can use the powers of an Eikon like the Icy Shiva or Giant Earth Titan. They can also take the form of the Eikon if necessary. The main protagonist, Clive, is a slave to the Empire, currently on a mission to eliminate Shiva's dominant, setting into motion a grand quest, taking him on a journey he never could have imagined. This is the first Final Fantasy game I've played that I don't really want my kids to see a whole lot of. Sure, there are some really awesome scenes with gorgeous graphics and amazing monsters they would love, and that would be alright. But there is a lot of blood and death in this game. During and after fights, Clive would be covered in the blood of his enemies. There's people getting their heads chopped off. It gets pretty graphic. There is also partial nudity and sexual references, and there are quite a few F-bombs dropped here and there.
I serve you, and you alone.
Final Fantasy XVI went all in on action RPG. The majority of playtime will be spent with Clive fighting enemies. I liked the fact I didn't have to control more than one guy the entire time. The basics of combat will involve Clive's sword and magic attacks. Thankfully, there isn't any mana to worry about when he's flinging magic all over the battlefield, and Clive can carry up to 3 different potions into combat with him. They'll have a low carry count like 4 or 2, so you can't carry all the heals and boosts into a fight.
Get him!
The real damage in combat will come from the various attacks Clive gets from Eikon blessings. He'll start out with just Phoenix, and gain more as the story moves forward, never having more than 3 blessings equipped at a time. These attacks can be improved by using ability points, increasing damage and effect. They will, however, require a cooldown after each use. The stronger the attack, the longer the cooldown. Fun fact, when an Eikon ability is mastered, it can be equipped with any other Eikon. A fun thing in boss fights are cinematic quick time events. When Clive has done enough damage, a short cutscene ensues, showing some awesome moves between the boss and Clive, and asking the player to hit the right button for an amazing dodge or attack. If the wrong button is pressed, Clive will usually end up taking some damage, and not look as cool in the fight. Thankfully, the game gives you plenty of time to press the right button, so there's no need to rush. So, with the limited supply of potions Clive can carry, there were a couple times after I fought through a gauntlet of monsters, I would show up to the boss with almost no heals when the fight starts. But if I died in combat, the game would start the fight over with a full supply of potions. And if I managed to get into a later phase in the fight, I would start there with the boss at like half health. I was impressed with how smooth combat felt. Going into the game, I was afraid of being overwhelmed with the fast pace and all the different abilities at my disposal, but it worked out very well. The transition between Eikon abilities never tripped me up, and I was able to do what I wanted when I wanted. I could even use a potion while Clive was being knocked around by the bad guys. No need to get to a safe spot for a healing animation. From the start of the game, there were a few amulets you could equip that would take all the thinking out of the fights. Auto-dodging or auto-healing, they basically did everything. All you had to do was point Clive in the right direction and smash the attack button. Even though there was a difficulty option at the start, you can make them far easier if you choose to, using everything the game offers. So, you can make it as difficult or as easy as you'd like to play. There were a lot of side quests that would pop up throughout the entire game, expanding some story and rewarding with gil, reputation, and crafting materials. The only side quests I really worried about were denoted with a plus sign. The reward for those were usually very helpful, like increasing potion potency or even the carrying capacity. Shortly into the game, Clive will unlock the blacksmith. There, he can craft and upgrade his equipment. His gear only being a sword, belt, and gloves. You can unlock new recipes for gear that are far better than the basic stuff available, but they are also a little tougher to make due to the extremely rare materials needed. It didn't feel like crafting was a huge part of the experience. I completed the game with the basic stuff Clive could get. About halfway through the game, rare hunts were unlocked. Clive could look at a board where people would post rare monster sightings. From there, he could go hunt them down for a generous reward of gil, and usually get a rare material needed for awesome gear. These fights can be challenging, and a nice distraction from the main story if needed. This was a long game to get through, and I didn't have much control over that. By the end, it felt like 2/3 of the game were long-winded cutscenes. A few of them were beautiful and a real treat to watch, but a lot of them felt unnecessarily long. They can be skipped, but then you wouldn't know what the heck was going on. It almost felt like I was playing a movie, and it was hard to keep me engaged.
There will be uproar.
Final Fantasy XVI is a big game. I beat the game after 36 hours. When I got to play, I really enjoyed my time, but I did start to get bored if a cutscene went longer than 10 minutes. It felt like they went all in on the story and haphazardly added things like crafting and upgrades. Anyway, let's get these ratings figured out and place it on a shelf. Visually, the game was absolutely gorgeous. The fights between Eikons were really awesome to watch, and everything was very smooth. It's worthy of a 5. The story was a unique take on the typical story of a Final Fantasy game. Still full of the same tropes I've seen them use over the years. I had a hard time really getting attached to the characters and overall story. I'm giving it a 3. The gameplay was fantastic when I got to play. The only problem I had was how slow Clive would run at times. But that's negligible. It's getting a 5. I feel like the replayability is surprisingly high for this game. There is a New Game Plus option, offering a tougher difficulty with different enemy placement. Clive also carries over his gear and abilities gained from the first playthrough. And if you've already gone through once, you can skip all the cutscenes. I want to give it a 4. The total amount of fun I had fluctuated quite a bit. Sometimes I was really into the game, having a blast. Other times I was bored out of my mind, waiting to actually play. So I'm going right down the middle and giving it a 3. The numbers are quite good, averaging out to 4, meaning Final Fantasy XVI gets placed up there on the top shelf. It was a good game, but I'm glad to be done with it. I'm not sure I would get back into it. I would say it's worth it, but not worth buying a PlayStation 5 just to play it. Maybe wait for it to release on another platform you already own. Well, now that I'm done with that, it's time to move on to the next one. I will see you there. Bye!